Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing a subject which is something I've wondered about ever since the Cell saga of Dragon Ball Z. And every single time I go back and rewatch or reread it, especially when it comes to a particular scene, I wonder about this question, which is, what if Tien used his Tribeam against the androids or other characters of a similar level of power? Would he have actually been able to defeat them using that special technique of his? And if so, why didn't he actually use that? Well, let's get into that video right now. But before I begin, guys, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and enable notifications so you can stay tuned to all my future videos. Additionally, if you like this content, make sure to leave a like and share this video out, as well as leaving your own comments down below. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So let's begin with a little bit of background on this move itself, going back to the initial time that Tien used this move during his fight against Goku in the 22nd tournament arc of the original Dragon Ball. At this point, Goku was doing really well against Tien, taking him on and really being able to counter pretty much all of his different techniques. At this point, Tien explains to Goku what he was going to do next, which is that he says, "Let me give you this warning. If you try to take this move, even you will die. Make no mistake." At this point, he says, "I don't want to kill you, so dodge it. Dodge it, you hear." This is all a strategy that Tien is using, in which he's going to unleash the Tribeam against Goku in an effort to destroy the ring. At that point, Goku will have nowhere else to dodge because Tien can fly, and as a result, Goku will jump out of the ring, landing outside, losing the match, and Tien will just be floating there, the winner. Of course, it didn't exactly work out that way, but nonetheless, Master Roshi is fully aware of what this type of move is. As he says right here, the Chi Cannon, a move of enormous destructive force, many times more powerful than even the Kamehameha, which of course is the technique that Master Roshi created. Its power is so colossal, in fact, that the drain on one's own energy is devastating. Warriors have been known to die by using it, and even if one survives, one's life is shortened. That evil Suru Senin, which is the Crane Hermit, teaching him a move that should never be taught. And Tien at this point says, "Don't worry, I won't go full force. I'll make sure I don't die." And this is the point where he attacks the ring, totally destroying it, leading to the climax of the fight. Now, interestingly, Master Roshi is correct, because later on, Tien would go on to use this technique not only in terms of devastating force, but also to the detriment of his own life, because the fact that it not only uses so much chi like a typical attack would, but it also saps their own life force in the process, which is something that we see directly during the fight against Nappa and the Saiyans. As after Nappa had punched off Tien's arm, and additionally after Chaozu had sacrificed himself, he had kind of left himself open for Tien to use his ultimate attack. At this point, Tien was a little bit injured after the fight against Nappa, so you have to wonder if this even was the full amount of power that he could have even output here, but this is when he puts everything he has into the Kikoho, or the Tribeam attack. He goes to attack Nappa using only one hand, which again you have to wonder if maybe that limited the amount of power that he could put out, and fires it directly at Nappa, who is significantly more powerful than Tien here. And as a result, you could see that everyone here is shocked by just how much power Tien is putting out, because the fact that every other attack that they had used against Nappa up until this point did nothing to him. However, this one did the most damage. Even though it didn't really kill Nappa or do significant damage to him, you could still see that his armor has been broken. He still has burns and cuts and scrapes all over his body as a result. And so even though everyone is shocked by the fact that Tien wasn't able to kill him with this move, nonetheless, it still was by far the strongest move that anyone used against Nappa up until Goku showed up there on the field. Unless, of course, you want to count the Destructo Disc, which is a totally different type of move. And Tien put out so much attack, so much power in this, that he actually died as a result, which is exactly what Master Roshi talked about right here when he said that it will drain your life force and cause you to die if you put too much power into it, which is exactly what Toriyama showcased right here when Tien did exactly that. Now, this leads into the next time that Tien had actually used this move, which is after the 3-year time skip, after the Saiyan saga and the Frieza arc, when Tien had trained along with the other humans, everyone training on their own, in order to achieve a power that would be able to fight against the androids. Tien at this point knew just how powerful the androids would become, or at least had a vague idea of it, because he knew how powerful Super Saiyan Goku and Trunks were when he saw them transform, and he also sensed the power of Frieza on display. However, we don't actually get to see Tien fight up until Vegeta goes one-on-one against Android 18. And during that, Android 18 began to wear Vegeta down with the stamina, getting the better of him, and what we see right here, breaking his arm. This is when Trunks rushes in as a Super Saiyan to fight them, and everyone else kind of jumps into the fray as a result. We see Piccolo jump down, Tien, everyone except for Krillin jumping down, because I guess Krillin was the smartest one there and realizing that he wouldn't stand a chance. But interestingly, Tien and the others, they go in to fight them normally one-on-one. Tien doesn't even attempt to use his Tribeam here. Instead, he just gets headlocked by 17 and then knocked down to the ground defeated, and that's about all he does. So you have to wonder if the power that he could have put out here was really at the level of what it would go on to be later on, because Tien doesn't exactly get Zenkai boost like a Saiyan, or, you know, doesn't exactly train as far as we could see again in between this and what we see with Semi-Perfect Cell. You have to wonder why maybe he didn't use the attack. I guess it's possible that you could see that there were too many people in the way. He didn't want to hit Trunks or Vegeta or anyone else with this technique, but we'll get into that more momentarily, because despite the fact that the androids were vastly above Tien and even the Super Saiyans at this point in time, when it comes time for Cell, who had already absorbed Android 17, who was, easily defeating Tien here, and wanted to absorb Android 18. And he's right about to do that right here when 18 is threatening to destroy herself with self-destruct. Tien shows up right above him and goes to use his technique against him. Of course, at first, Cell probably thought that there was nothing he could do until Tien unleashes this ability. Now, bear in mind, this is not the traditional Kikoho. This is what Tien calls the Neo Kikoho, or the Neo Tribeam, which is a new variation that he created during his training, which is actually a better version of the Tribeam that actually allows him to use it in rapid succession. It is something that he can use again and again and again and again, as opposed to only using one time, in order to repeatedly buffet his opponent with a variety of different shots, as opposed to just one large shot that will, kill him as a result. Now, when he hits Semi-Perfect Cell with this, he knocks him down into the ground in this pit, and then he continues to hit him over and over again so that 18 and 16 can escape. And you could see Cell right here in the pit. He's clearly taking damage. It's clearly hurting him to some degree. And if this move was really nothing by comparison to his power, then obviously he would just smacked it away, brushed it off, or anything like that. Instead, he keeps hitting him over and over again. And as Goku even says right here, stop it, Tien. Stop it or you're going to die. So it definitely has that same weakness, just like the other Tribeam that can kill its user by depleting so much of their power and life force. And we continue to see this happening over and over again when he continues to use this move against Cell, who cannot get up out of this pit no matter what he's trying to do. Up until the point in which Tien, he gets out a little bit, knocks him right back down, but then Tien, he has used so much of his power up, he passes out and falls right onto the ground, knocked out. Now, interestingly, take a look at Cell's body here, because there's a lot of people who try and say that Tien didn't do any damage to Cell. However, just take a look at him. Look at all these burn marks, these scuffs, this damage that's clearly on Cell's body. Look at his face. Look at all these lines that Toriyama drew here in order to convey all of that to him. That shows damage right here. Now, why is this important? Well, number one, it shows that Tien, who is vastly below the power of Cell, was actually able to harm him using this move. However, another thing that it shows is just how much power the Kikoho and even this new version of the Neo Tribeam is able to put out, because the fact that, look at what happens when Android 16 tries to attack Semi-Perfect Cell. Now, Android 16 is a lot more powerful than 17 and 18, and even Piccolo after he merges with Kami, due to the fact that we could see right here, he's fighting against a stronger Imperfect Cell who had absorbed thousands upon thousands of people and surpassed all of the androids except for him, him, and he was even with him. In fact, as I discussed in a video you could see in the top right corner, it's very likely that he even would have beaten Cell if their fight had continued without any interruption. And yet, despite this, after Cell absorbs 17, as we could see right here, and goes on to power up, 16 punches Cell when he's mid-conversation, mid-sentence, right in the face, and it literally does nothing. No damage to him or anything at all. And yet, when Cell emerges from this pit, not only was he actually phased beyond, anything that 16 did with that punch right in the face when he was completely caught off guard, but additionally, he has way more scuffs and burns and marks on him and his body, as you could see them showing with my mouse right here, than anything Android 16 did that was, I don't know, hundreds of times possibly stronger than Tenshinhan at this point in time. So that goes to show you that Tenshinhan, with this ability, was able to put out vastly more damage than anything that the other characters could do, because even as Master Roshi said in the tournament earlier, as I just showed before, the Kikoho is a move of enormous destructive force, many times more powerful than even the Kamehameha. And so as a result, this means that when he trained significantly in the many years since the 22nd tournament, Tien was able to not only make this move even stronger along with his own body, because at this point he's probably somewhere in the millions range, as I discussed in another video you could see in the top right, where I talked about just how strong Goku is after the 3-year time skip, as well as the other characters. And this move pushes him even further up to where it seems like it could do hundreds of times that level of damage, to where it's even able to hurt Semi-Perfect Cell at this point in time and keep him down in this pit repeatedly, and even allow the other androids to escape for a significant period of time until he passes out. Of course, in Dragon Ball Z, this could be 2 seconds because, how fast everything moves with cinematic timing. But nonetheless, he was able to do something that no one at this point could do up until Vegeta and Trunks actually exited the time chamber and were able to defeat Cell in combat. And, as their normal Super Saiyans, without even being able to use their upgraded form, or without turning into it, there's a chance they wouldn't have been able to put out this much damage either, which goes to show just how ridiculously powerful this attack is. So the question is, if Tien were to, instead of targeting Cell with this ability, decided to instead turn his sights to, I don't know, Android 18 right here, or Android 16, and blast them, I mean, look how close she is right there, would he have been able to kill her? Would he have been able to kill Android 17, as we saw him fighting over here before, earlier on in the arc, if he had done, well, the exact same thing to him? If he had just said, you know what, we could just wish the other people back with the Dragon Balls, Shin Kikoho, and just blasted into all of them at full power, would he have been able to kill them? When you look at the power scaling here, when you look at the vast difference in power between 17 and 18, and even 16 with Semi-Perfect Cell, because like I said, Android 16 was so much more powerful than Semi-Perfect Cell at this point in time, or actually the other way around, strike that and reverse it, like Willy Wonka said, to the point to where Android 16 was equal to Cell, who had tanked a full power attack from Piccolo, which you could see right here with the light grenade, which Android 17 just completely jumped out of the way of because he probably realized he would be able to get killed, as I discussed in another video in the top right where I talked about who would win between 17 and Piccolo if the fight wasn't interrupted by Cell. It did nothing to Cell, and 16 was equal to him, and yet 16 couldn't even do anything to Cell when he punched him right in the face at full power when he was completely caught off guard, whereas Tien was actually able to do something to him. So when you think about all that, it really only makes sense in universe and logically that Tien would have been able to hurt at the very least 17, 18, maybe even 16 with this move and damage them to where it would at least weaken them significantly, or very likely even kill them. Maybe if he had all 3 of them in his sights at one time and he fired, he could kill all 3 of them in one shot. It's crazy to think about. At the very least, he could have held them down in a pit and hit them over and over and over and over again until, they were damaged to the point to where the other Z fighters could have stood an actual chance against them, because the fact that their weakened bodies might not be able to put out their full 100% level of power, even though they did have infinite infinite stamina at that point in time. So you have to wonder why he didn't use this. I guess, like I said before, because of collateral damage, and also additionally, you know, because the fact that, well, let's think about it out of universe for a second. Toriyama probably didn't even think about it. So with that being said, there's a very strong chance, and there's another piece of evidence in the Buu saga that also backs this up. Because just look at what happens when Super Buu is fighting against Ultimate Gohan. He has the advantage over him. He sees that Gohan was healed by Dende at this point. Super Buu goes to attack and kill Dende, and Tien is actually able to fire his Kikoho and stop this from happening. So once again, you know, this goes to show just how much power he's able to put out, although there is a limit to it because, as we see momentarily, when Super Buu goes to use this attack, Gohan can't stop it, Tien can't, he even says that he's useless, and so, as a result, there is a limit to what he can put out, but nonetheless, I mean, obviously, there's a much bigger gap between Tien here and Buu with Gotenks absorbed, comparative to even the difference between Tien and Semi-Perfect Cell. So if Tien used the Tribeam against the androids, would he have actually been able to kill them? You know, a lot of the evidence seems to point to that being yes, because the fact that he did so much damage to Semi-Perfect Cell, or at least he did any damage to him whatsoever compared to anything else any other character could do at the time, and kept him down for a significant period of time that allowed the others to escape, they would only have to think that when he used against vastly weaker characters like 18, 17, and so on, he would have been able to, at the very least, harm them in a significant way. Maybe you can argue that's the reason he didn't use it against 18. He wasn't sure for a fact that he would be able to kill her, and as a result, you know, he didn't want to make it easier for Semi-Perfect Cell to be able to absorb her. But realistically, when you look at the power scaling here, it only makes sense that he would have been able to significantly hurt them. With that being said, guys, let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing and enable notifications so you could stay up to date with all my future videos. Like this video if you like it, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.